Common State presents The Maker's Dozen. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Maker's Dozen podcast, episode 1. I'm Nick Pipitone. The Maker's Dozen is going to be a series of podcasts where I pose 12 questions called The Maker's Dozen to creative people of all walks of life to get to the bottom of what makes them tick, what makes them creative, what makes them do what they do, what drives them every day, and maybe get to the bottom of what creative people do to stay creative, and hopefully in the process help people understand how they can be more successful at what they do. And my first guest is an artist named Nina Bednarski. She's an incredibly creative person whose artwork is fantastic. She's also an activist and just an all-around fantastic person. I ran into Nina when I was looking for a birthday gift for my wife, and saw these bird paintings she did that are just fantastic, painted on glass. And I ended up spending about 2 hours in her studio a couple years ago just talking about art that turned into an article for our site, Common State. And now I've circled back with her, here in 2021. And she answered the Maker's Dozen. So without further ado, here's me and Nina Bednarski. Hi, Nina.
Hello.
How are you?
2021, first scheduled event. I'm well.
It is.
It wasn't canceled. Well, it was.
Yeah.
But we're here now, so it's good.
Yeah.
I'm well. So I'm
Good.
excited to jump into your questions. I kind of looked over them last week, so let's fire it up, see what happens.
All right, so the Maker's Dozen is 12 questions for creative people, and we'll just go through it and see where it takes us. The first question of the Maker's Dozen is, why are you creative? Simple question. Why are you creative?
All right. So I mentioned first and foremost that I feel it helps mark the passage of time. Creativity to me is kind of like a lifelong mental exercise program. And I'm not much of an exerciser physically, so it's great that I have this program in my life, this creative program. But I've always kind of been mistrustful of those who didn't value or practice their own form of creativity. So that to me, in part, because I find it's kind of inherent in everyone to seek out inspiration and a form of nutrients to support their well-being. I guess for me, I feel a bit misaligned with the mainstream worldview about quote unquote work.
Yeah.
So my ability to rinse and repeat day after day was never an option. It actually caused me a great deal of anxiety. So I had to get creative. And in a way, I've always enjoyed the mystique of the path less traveled. So from a young age, I took an observational role and spoke up primarily through visual art. And that's why I'm creative.
It's amazing. It's like it's like an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing.
Yeah, I think it's the whole journey so far. For me, I'm in my early 40s, there's more there. It's a structural plan that creates space to allow myself the ability to be free. And that freedom is the creativity, but the creativity requires the time. And I think that's why I never really had a great run at a 9-to-5, creative job 9-to-5. But I did pull off a couple of those. But for me, I just need the space to allow for the randomness of the projects to come and the freelance. So that kind of moves us towards the next question about job, because I feel like that's kind of perfect segue.
Yeah. Like what is something you do outside your normal everyday job as an artist that keeps you creative?
Right. And then of course, like, as I was saying, the job per se is especially challenging right now with the pandemic, and the tighter margins for like finding freelance opportunities is really taxed. So it's been a very long time since I had a strict schedule and steady round paycheck, so that the survival portion can be tiresome and lacking in creativity, and I'm very sensitive to this,
Yeah.
so managing day to day with the projects and savings to create like a foundation for the next thing, and giving that time back to the creativity itself. Looking at it like that, like you're managing this space for this entity that you're hopeful will fire off at some point and have dividends that give back to you long term. So it's like not necessarily every day is that job as an artist. I'm on the desk painting. I'm managing all the aspects of life that allow me to give that creativity a home, that like kind of room to grow, or like, so I think my main source outside of just the day-to-day kind of studio management and money management and material management is garden. It's the garden. It's
Yeah.
simple. It's nature time. Any way I can get through the 4 seasons here, it just brings me a lot of calm and hope. So I think that calm and hope from the nature sort of generally, hope does fuel creativity.
Mm.
To
Yeah.
have, so nature's really like my place, and that's my outside of the studio work thing, and that really keeps me going. Like it's less about people for me, and it's more about place. I like refinement. I like the organization that nature puts out there, and the interconnections. So I just, that's where it happens for me.
Yeah. I mean, just like, yeah, just getting away from your normal, it just refuels you when you're out in the garden or whatever to go back. And but again, I think I'm super impressed by the fact that you sort of just like carve out the time. You structure it. It's not just like, you know, it's not just like, well, I'm when the spirit moves me. It's not like that. It's more just like, it's a
Yeah.
structured situation.
Yeah, I think that's the strange part about my practice, though. It's maybe 60% of it is just clearing space and structuring time, and not even judging if nothing productive is happening during that time. So in a way, it's a lot of meditation. It's a lot of just like clearing clutter and simplifying everything that kind of got in the way, and just like making my expenses much lower.
Right.
So
Right.
but it's all
Beans.
part,
Giving
but
yourself the beans.
that's, yeah, a 10-year project. It's to sort of like say, oh, because I used to do it all, freelance, have this, own this, run, all these and I had to, like, this is pre-pandemic, but I think people now are realizing that we have too many balls, in the air, and this concept is really helpful for me, you know and
Right.
then not being judgmental of how much you're actually producing in the moment, because it will come.
Confidence. You got the confidence that something will happen.
Well, I think this is like my 10-year stride. I think I made the space, and now we go.
Right.
That's what I feel like.
Right. Right. What's something you saw recently that inspired you, that made you like want to make art or want to be creative?
Great. Mine's simple. It's like a few weeks ago, in fact, I stepped out of my car. It was like dusk. I was in the driveway with a bunch of gifts for Christmas, and a long shadow like just filled the driveway, and it was directly overhead. But it was like a full wingspan, totally silent. It was this great horned owl. It was magnificent, really. I mean, that's it. It was just that. And then it kind of just, I was like, whew,
Wow.
it it just did it for me. It just was like a message, sort of like,
Is
keep
nature
moving.
does that what nature is nature do that? That's a nature thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, that encounter was really cool because it was so immediate. It was right there, like this wingspan, full driveway coverage. Like, this is a beautiful shadow, and then I look up, and there he is, just looking right down at me.
Wow. Amazing.
Probably like a couple feet. Yeah, no, that kind of stuff. That always kind of feels like, oh, a little signpost. Keep going. You get to see something beautiful today.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. An owl. I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, and I love my birds, so I always give the bird kingdom a little extra uh
Yeah.
importance.
Maybe that's a nice segue to the next question, which is the one thing you've created that defines you the most.
Again, like with my work and what I'm hoping to do with my work going forward here is it's nature related. So I really went right straight for the Sonoran Desert, which is one of my favorite places to be. It has this kind of delicate nuance in color and these sharp shifts in texture and these open horizons. So it's a place I feel atypically calm also when I'm there. But my work really has a lot of those same elements in it. So I said my large scale landscapes reverse painted on glass, and specifically one from the Sonoran Desert titled Joshua Tree. That one was made with like a very focused technical process, but free and open lines. So it's very kind of uh, reflective of my way of seeing.
Right.
Does that
Right.
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's,
I mean, to me, it sounds like nature's the theme. It's like the desert and the birds, and you seeing this owl and being so inspired by it. And it's like that's, and being into gardening. It seems like there's definitely a pattern there that is, you know,
yeah. I mean, I think like there was a period in my life where a lot of my concerns were more humanistic, and I was much more into crowds and collaboration and identifying that way. And I lived
Mhm.
in New York City, and that was, I wasn't able to access the same silent solitude kind of experience. But I mean, I don't really want to talk too much about the pandemic, but I think others are realizing this inherent ability to speak to ourselves through the sort of time that we're experiencing in our houses. And I had to do that a little earlier because I had Lyme disease. So I was alone a lot
Yeah.
and wasn't feeling my finest and wasn't having the energy to participate in the art world and step up like I was used to. So I think for me, it's just been a great outlet, and it's a non-judgmental outlet. So that's like, it's nature, but it's also more spiritual, and it's about self-healing, and it's kind of about recreating a space for your success, not really for the success that others see for you, you know? And
That's
so that,
such an
yeah,
important distinction to make, actually. It's a
yeah,
really
I do
important
too.
distinction
I
to
wanted
make.
to, yeah, I really do. Because it's not like, oh, my work is about, a pretty vista. No, I think it's really more inward, but that's also been kind of like a forced inward, which I think we're all feeling like a forced inward right now a little
For
bit.
sure.
So,
Oh, without
so I
question.
feel like, oh, I've been in training or something for this,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, let's see. I mean, I'm excited about the next, 6 months of solitude because I think it'll be very productive. That's the hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. I think so too. I think that staying positive and trying to stay productive in any way you can is really important right now. Really important.
Yeah, and I just like to kind of talk about creativity as availability to everyone, like it's something that's available, but it's also restrictive when your overhead or your day-to-day life is a survival. So if you're only able to think about survival, then it's really unfortunate that creativity is just these bursts of hope, but maybe not something that all of our society gets to tap into on a regular basis. So I feel really grateful for that opportunity.
I think you saying, before we get to the next question, you saying creativity is like a burst of hope is really amazing because that is the feeling that you get when you're making something or when you have an idea. That's
Yeah.
hope happening. That's like, oh, that's a cool idea. That's like hope, and that's like a promise for the future when you have an idea or when you say,
Or
oh, I'm going
or
to make
like
that.
a
Or yeah,
yeah,
that
like
that
a
is hope.
musical. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Like that musical chord that you hear off in the distance, or you know, a teenager hitting, a note in his bedroom after a long week of like feeling like totally oppressed. It's just like,
Yeah.
hey, that's juice. Like that's an
Yeah.
exit strategy,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always have to be an escape, but it is kind of in a way.
I love it too. That's great. It's an exit strategy. That's great too, because that is true. It's an exit strategy. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go off this way now and get away from this other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we need everyone to start thinking in that direction.
Yeah, no, I totally
I hope.
agree. I
I
totally
hope. Yeah.
agree. Okay, next question. Name an influential or inspirational book everyone must read. Any book come to mind?
Oh,
Or...
yeah. This one was kind of easy for me. I said Just Kids by Patti Smith. I'm a big fan of Patti Smith. Patti narrates the audio version also of this book, Just Kids, if you want to listen to her tell the story. But it's in her
Mhm.
words. It's like her luck, trial, finesse alongside Robert Mapplethorpe in late 1960s New York.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not a how-to book, which I appreciate. It's more of a this is what happened book. She kind of captures the raw, poetic, and risk-taking lives of a few artists who landed in New York City during a historic time of who's who. That's kind of how I described it. Um,
Yeah, that's
yeah, I
amazing.
just
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great little historical, dramatic, feminist, art kind of slice of the late 60s, early 70s in New York City. She lived with Robert Mapplethorpe in the Chelsea Hotel, and I worked underneath the Chelsea Hotel as a coat check when I lived in New York City. Not as glamorous, but
Right.
I got to see all the spaces and the like remnants of all the restaurants and bars that she talks about in the book too. So I have that kind of I just really enjoyed that. But I just found it inspiring, her journey and like how she arrived there with, just kind of like how a lot of people that risk take arrive with an empty uh, sort of canvas, and they just go for it and they just wait for it to build up on its own. And she kind of did that. Although, it takes effort
Yeah.
and confidence, of course, and luck.
Yeah.
It's all in that book though. It's a really just nice like vignette of like, okay, this is how you jump off a cliff kind of thing.
And I assume you saw like parallels to your own life and attitudes towards life.
I think like everybody would maybe see like a little something, like they would get a little something, because Patti Smith has like a really nice way of writing where she's very open, so she kind of is all inclusive. I think she has a good grasp on humanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, like
Okay.
we walk the same streets, we took similar risks as women, without a job, no plan, just kind of showed up in New York. I did that. So I can appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Oh, awesome. Um, what's the thing you carry around with you every day that you find indispensable?
Oh, this is going to be kind of unheroic. This will be a short answer.
Uh-oh.
Um,
I'm
I
scared.
just said it's safe to say that my rapid hydration electrolyte packs. It's like a water supplement. You add it to your water, and it like
Yeah.
gives you a burst. It's like what they use in the military
Yeah.
for dehydration. It's major. It's like a life changer. It's so awesome. I mean, because water is everything, right? So when things go haywire and you don't consume enough water, that's usually the reason. So it's in my purse. It's like, yeah, you're starting to get like a little fidgety. You just do a rapid hydration pack. You're good.
Note to creatives, must be hydrated at all times.
Stay hydrated, people. Water is life.
Who's the most influential person in your creative life?
Yeah. So clearly we have to highlight creative life. Because
Yeah.
like, I could have said my grandfather and my personal, but I went ahead and gave a shout out to Ron and Michael, who were these creative directors that I worked with in New York City.
Yeah.
They have to be like the two people who gave me my big break in New York, and that led to a lot of other opportunities. But they just took on ideas and gave me full-time freelance work executing window displays around Manhattan, and they just trusted my vision because they trusted their own vision. And so they just had a lot of space for respect, collaboration. They brought a lot of joy to the table, quality and detail. They were like impeccably good at quality and detail, which I as somebody who really appreciates the technique,
Yeah.
I really appreciated their eye for detail. And then just the variety of work that we took on as a team, and their fearless creators. They just kind of took on a lot of things that maybe didn't pay the big bucks, but like allowed us to go deeper into some real wild materials, and work with some really fun small businesses in the city. And yeah, the idea of not giving a shout out to Ron and Michael. So those two, amazing.
I love it. I mean, everyone's got that person in their life, because the creative life's hard enough. You got to find that one person or two people that believe in you and what
Yeah,
you
and
can
they
do.
they earned their title as creative directors. They really just, they had the gift. They knew how to. There was a bunch of people that came before me that they could have instilled their trust in, but they just had the eye. They just like knew who was going to drive their projects, and they just could pull them out of a line and just like make stuff happen. I think that is like a really, really that's a powerful thing, to be able to make choices like that dictate an entire year worth of work, you
Yeah.
know.
And make those choices be for the most part, the right choices or good choices.
Right. Oh yeah, I felt like the teams that they pulled together were like some of the funnest teams I ever worked with.
Wow.
Yeah, they just had the juice. They had the eye. They knew what was. They weren't afraid, and they didn't need a lot of written. Uh, they weren't the kind of guys who needed like you to write a document explaining all your experience. They just wanted to sit you down in a stairwell and say, "What do you want to do here?" Instead of like asking you to make these huge resumes and CVs. They were more like one-on-one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was cool. Cool,
That's
cool
awesome.
guys.
That's
I
awesome.
missed. They're still there. I was supposed to go see them in 2020, and you know what happened? It got canceled.
Like everything else.
All right, next question.
How do you silence the doubts?
Okay. I said personally, I had to stop everything in my life that felt heavy. So public engagements, projects, applications, grant proposals, all that stuff that I was engaging in up until about 3 years ago became what I consider heavy. So that feeling of like it's this overwhelm. Um, so I realized kind of my own limits during that silence, and health and otherwise. So I'm a much happier creator now. I have a little blank canvas, but I really do appreciate the fact that I was able to stop everything and not judge myself,
So,
pull away.
so wait, I want to dig deeper on that. So doing all that stuff causes you to doubt yourself?
No, I when I say like feels heavy, I'm talking more like maybe from like I'm not calm.com or anything, but I definitely feel like when your body feels noticeably weighted down, like you can feel that, right? It's like you
Yeah.
just, and then when you're like, when it's lighter, it feels more like the truth or the flow or the right choice. So that's sort of the energy I'm talking about. For me, I think what was happening at that point is that I was just about to break ground on a diagnosis of Lyme disease, and my overall health was just so weak that I
Yeah.
couldn't keep up with the others in my arena, like the art world expectations. So for me, I'm just being very honest about, I guess, the doubts that I was having because I didn't know why I was feeling energetically tired. Like everything was tiring me out. I didn't want to, I was like not enjoying hanging solo shows. Like I didn't want to give talks. Like I didn't enjoy the process of writing a proposal for the future. Like those things at that time, and maybe a little bit right now, I was just feeling, they just didn't feel right. But
Hmm.
I don't think it wasn't
Yeah.
like a doubt that was everlasting, but it was a doubt at that moment that got me to step back and say, oh, none of this feels right. I'm going to step back, and then I'm going to look to the silence and get my answers about why am I feeling that doubt, and then how can I kind of move through it and go, hopefully forward into a creative life, because that's
Yeah.
what I'm invested. I
Yeah.
don't know what else I would do.
Right.
It's
Right.
just so that that that's kind of like a personal story, kind of fighting through an illness and then not even knowing you have it. So then all of a sudden you're blaming your art life, your colleagues or your expectations or your engagements. So getting a diagnosis was super helpful because then I was able to treat the illness and then look at the career from a new, gentler point of view.
Yeah.
Say,
Yeah.
hey, we can go forward with a gentler point of view. So, because there's a lot of expectations to keep up and, sort of a laundry list of to-dos to make it in the art world. And I think those are changing rapidly.
Yeah.
So I think that's great because the gate is open and we don't know like where we're going really, because all the traditional steps we took as artists and galleries and this and that, it's changing. So yeah, the doubts.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue. Where do you think that's next? I'm gonna add a question. I'm gonna improvise here. Where do you think it's going? I mean, in the middle of a pandemic, obviously people are hunkered down. Most of us are. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air about what's to come. And definitely creative life is changing.
Yeah.
How do you think it's changing, or where do you think it's going, if you know at
Mm,
all?
yeah. I think I do know where it's going. How do I put that into words? I do think that hmm
I know this is
yeah,
off the cuff here. We're
this
going off the
pause you
script
may
here,
have
but
to edit out, but that's heavy. Yeah, it's like it's not heavy like I don't want to answer it. It's
yeah,
not that kind of heavy.
yeah,
It's that I don't want to sound conceited or preachy, I guess,
yeah,
because I think that I do know. I think I've spent a lot of time alone in the last 5 years, sort of revising what it means for me to be a happy creator. And that is like the most important thing to me at this point, is to be a happy creator. And like, how can we move forward from this? I think the artists that I know that aren't getting the gigs, that aren't being able to gather with their groups, if they're musicians, the poets who can't gather for the readings. I mean, all that stuff is very hurtful to the overall like collective force that we can create when we share and we bounce ideas off and we get together and we kind of co-create things. But I think that will come again.
yeah,
I don't think those outlets, those avenues, those spaces where we show things will go away completely, but I do think that they will evolve and be much more open.
yeah.
I think
I think
they
so
were
too.
way too closed off and way too 1%y. They felt like the financial industry for a second there, where
Yeah,
everyone wanted to give themselves a title, and then there was this exclusivity. And if we want to heal the world, like we got to open that door a little wider. and
yeah,
and then like if you can open it a little wider, then what can we create? Like that is going to be uh really impressive. And I think the
yeah,
future is going to be beautiful creatively if people can get over the depression and the fear, because there's a lot of that right now.
yeah. No, I agree. There's going to be a lot of that. I think even after people are vaccinated, there's still going to be fear and masking and all that stuff. Okay,
Well, and
next
there's going to
question.
be hardships,
And
different
there's going
stuff,
to be
so
hardships. I totally agree.
socioeconomic limitations, and how do we
Yeah,
yeah it's a wild time. I hope that we can transition out of this without as much pain, with as minimal pain as possible at this point. It's already been enough.
it's already been enough. I agree. Okay, this is a strange one, but the question, what's your morning routine? I think it's important to know. Everyone's like the morning is when people are most productive, but I think everyone's different. I think what is your morning routine?
All right, I don't know why anybody cares about my morning routine, but here, I'll let you a little bit into my morning routine. I wake up kind of groggy with brain fog, okay? Because I
Yeah,
have I have Lyme disease, so that's what I have to deal with.
yeah,
So I get up, I eat something, I take a huge grip of supplements and herbs, and then I go straight back to bed. And I don't sleep again. I meditate, or what I call like quote unquote meditate. I call it meditate. because my body gets more rest, but I can then exercise my mind for like the day's tasks. So I kind of lay there, I kind of meditate my body, but I exercise my mind. And when I'm satisfied with an idea or a scheduled plan or motivation for the day, I take the steps to get it moving, which sometimes is harder on some days, but usually I can get her moving. And then I allow for, the morning, like peace really helps me connect to the proper flow for the day. So I have like the luxury of kind of designing every day as it comes. And that again goes back to that space that I, delegated over the last 5, 6 years that we talked about earlier in the interview.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that's what I do. And I do it every day, except those days where I have something at 8 o'clock and I'm up, I shower and I blast off. But those aren't always my favorite starts.
Right. Right. Meditate.
So meditate. Everybody should
Meditate.
try it. No judgment. You just lay in your bed and you meditate.
I love it. Because that's gonna be the next time. Like, why are you still in bed? Hey, I'm meditating. I'm meditating.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yes,
love
it's
it.
a real thing and it's super good. All
What
right.
is your favorite meeting, or where are you most productive? What's your favorite meeting spot, or where are you most productive?
I have a commercial space in Bayview, a studio here.
Yeah,
I love it here. This is great. I've had it 4 years. I would say this is the best place to meet with me.
that's
It's
where you
it's
met.
like very safe space, very very many plants here, lots of good light,
Mm-hmm.
tall ceilings. We just like this spot. But I have other meeting spots in town. But I like North Point Lighthouse a lot, and I like the Seminary Woods. If
Mm.
I'm in like meet somewhere outside of the studio, good kind bar or wine thief when they're open,
When they're
stuff
open,
like that.
right? Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I like to, meet up at the local spots. But yeah, my studio space here, I'm trying to keep it going. So yeah, I'm here right now. So
Awesome.
it's still here.
It's still there. It's still going. If you were not doing what you currently do, what would you be?
Yeah, if I wasn't an artist, I think I would really hope to be either in the rainforest doing research, scientist, kind of alone
Yeah.
in the woods or in the rainforest setting. I just feel like I could do some of that sort of solitary scientific work,
Yeah.
collecting and data. But I also thought about like a landscape architect.
Mm.
I think it would be amazing to have the resources for like deep, lasting influence on spaces for leisure and beautification, to watch them grow and change with time, especially like public space. That would be a great career. You'd have to have like a wildly successful career and a grip of money, but it would be great. Like Olmsted, Central Park, that kind of influence. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Outdoor spaces, to have like design outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
Yeah.
think like, and it just sort of that whole lungs of the city kind of thing, like really always like inspired me.
That's great. That's a great term. The lungs of a city, the place where the city breathes.
Yeah. I think there's like some books about it, but the whole idea of displacing people to create the public spaces, is part of the argument. But let's just pretend it's a perfect world and we just want to make it beautiful and the space is available. Like, how about that? Like
Yeah.
endless gardens, thoroughways, animal corridors, all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah. 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 No, I agree. Okay, last question of the Maker's Dozen. Greatest piece of advice you ever received. What was it?
Okay. I have an answer. It's a little political. It's a good way to end, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it stabs a little bit at some of the friends in the world right now that are not using critical thinking. So my final answer today is to unpack everything that was told and sold to me as the truth with critical thinking skills. That is the greatest piece of advice I ever received. I would say that was packaged up and sent to me through my liberal arts education at Madison.
Mm-hmm.
When I was presented with the idea of using critical thinking skills, that was a big deal. it seems like that would be just inherent, right? Like
Yeah,
obvious, so
you think.
simple, but clearly these skills are being lost at the expense of the greater good. So to be unable to actually understand what you are seeing, feeling, or supporting is a truly terrifying concept. And I'm watching it, I'm watching it every day in the news, and with, the support of hate and ignorance, uh, is just sort of a scary time. And critical thinking is out the window with social media, and just people, just it's almost like mashed potato head. So yeah, it wasn't my mistrust in my liberal arts education it wasn't like the liberal arts education was teaching me how to look at everything with mistrust, but in a way it was just kind of that requirement of being dedicated, uh, to the inspection of facts upon delivery.
Yeah,
If the facts are weak, there's no truth to invest energy in. So you can just turn your head away and move on. Just seems like we ruminate in a lot of BS. I just brought
me
it up,
too.
like social media narcissism, and lying for political and economic gains. It's tolerated en masse now. So
It
I'm
is.
really, yeah. So my that's it. That's my final thing. I'm very thankful to every teacher and advocate of my mind for stressing the importance of critical thinking.
I could not agree more, and that is a great way to end. Thanks, Nina. Hopefully, we all will be better critical thinkers in the future. I appreciate your time.
So
Thank you
fun to
so
talk to you.
much.
You're so welcome. It was great to hear from you. I hope that wasn't too much personal information out there in the radio world, but that's what I got for you today.
All right, good to go. Thanks, Nina.